Education, Arts and Culture, through the Executive Director, has declared Friday the 23rd of February 2024 as a school holiday. This is part of the national mourning arrangements with regard to the passing of the late President Geingob and the preparation for the activities leading to the National Memorial Service on the 24th of February and the state funeral on Sunday, 25 February 2024. Executive Director in the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture, Madam Sanet Steenkamp, now joins us with more. Good afternoon, Madam, and welcome to this special tribute broadcast.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Denver. Thank you for having me.
Before we get into the particulars of the announcement, talk to us about the relationship that you had with the late Dr. Hage Geingob.
Well, he was an educator of note first and foremost, and he was the president of this country. So as an executive director or an accounting officer, you have to, at any given point, engage with your minister, your prime minister, but also His Excellency. And we had various opportunities where we could engage him in very honest manners. And there were many light moments that we had. I have beautiful pictures, where I throw my head back laughing of the things that he would say. But he valued education, and that helped. And I think with the Transforming Education Summit in 2022, where he went also to and represented our country in New York, but on the African continent, he was also the champion, one of the 10 champions of education among 54 member states.
I don't think we've emphasized that enough over the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, so he was an educator of note. He invested in the education of others. We had the biggest budget, but he also invested in his own education, and that was beautiful. So he had the value and the belief system that education must be all-inclusive and that it must be of quality. And that I will always treasure.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Before the ministry announced the 2023 ordinary level as well as advanced subsidiary level results, the first week of January 2024, a picture circulated where senior staff of the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture, including yourself and the minister and some other team members, were briefing the late Dr. Geingob on these results. And many of us who, although we were not present at the meeting, drew our own inferences about what transpired at that event, given what we believed was the expression on the late president's face. Please tell us about that engagement.
Well, in the picture that was circulated, he actually sits with his head like this and
Indeed.
studies the documents.
Oh, he studies it.
He studies the documents. He's looking at the documents that we presented. So we decided, when he entered, he already said, thank you, and thank you for being here. And we exchanged pleasantries, and then we sat down, and then we said, Your Excellency, we will not take more than 45 minutes. We truly just wanted to come and present to you our results, and he was so happy. He was appreciative. He was in pain. You could see. He also admitted it to us, that he was expecting news from his doctors, which would not be what he would, in general, one would expect. So he was open
on that very day.
On that very day, as he was entering, he was telling us, because our appointment was shifted a little bit later. And as we sat down, we were also very clear. We asked permission, may we take a picture? But we also decided to respect, the moment. And yes, the minister then presented. And two things stood out. One, he reflected on his life as a teacher, and he was talking about the value of continuous assessment. And then secondly, he was talking about how the fear that we must understand, and people must understand the fear that learners have when they go and write exam, because he recalls that when he was a teacher. That was a big reality for learners. So he reflected on the time of Honorable Nazangula himself when they were, steering in the teaching profession. And we listened to him. And the beauty was he listened to us. And then he said, you should stop blaming yourself. Education is very complex, but you should also not stop striving to do the best. And one of the things on that 9th of January, Denver, that stood out was when he said there's a lot of misperception out there on education, and we need to get it right. And I then made a pledge, and I said, Your Excellency, as the accounting officer, I pledge with our EXCO team that we will continue to inform the nation. Even if the issues are controversial, we will continue to have the difficult discussions. So there was also a pledge from my side, and that's something that I plan to honor.
45 minutes optimally used, one would say. And when you said goodbye to him after those 45 minutes, what was
because
the mood
when
like?
he entered, he said, I would have loved to shake your hands, you know. And then he just made like this, and then he went to sit down, and he asked us to sit down. When we left Denver, he stood and waited each one of us. He made eye contact, and he greeted us with his hand. And we all said something positive to each other. That's what I love. Whether you're going to see Your Excellency off at the airport and you had that opportunity to do so, or whether you receive him, he made time, and you were the most important person right there, right that moment for him. And what I so much appreciate is the eye contact, because I love eye contact. Our eyes speak to each other, and that is something that we're taking away. It was the last engagement.
Something you never would have thought would be the case.
Not in my wildest dreams.
In hindsight, how do you feel about that?
When I received the news, I was in Lutritz. I was devastated. I went through all the stages of mourning all in once. You were in denial. You double check that indeed that is a State House document. You double check that it is Hengari posting it, you know. You immediately get into a sense of negotiating with God. But really, how could it be if only we had? So I went through various different emotions and feelings. And then I end up making a phone call to the minister that early morning hours, because I saw the message 24 minutes past 4 in the morning. And I made a call to the minister. So devastated. I mean, like many other Namibians. I can't own the feeling. It's really a collective sense of devastation and mourning that spread right through our nation.
Thank you for sharing that. I would like us to take one slight step back. So what we know about the results is there was a slight improvement that made many of us very happy, particularly after the previous year. How did he receive the news about that improvement?
He was very happy. He said, now you see how complex education is. He was comparing it to our engagement with him the previous year, that was on the 13th of January 2023, when we had our engagement with him. And he said, do you remember that when you came to me, you were all so despondent, but you had a sense of hope. Look now, there is improvement. You have put the plans, because we went also to present the realities of education to him, but also our implementation plan. And he made reference to it. He could recall it. And that was beautiful, that he made reference to it and said, you see, celebrate this. And we appreciated that the head of state was reasonable with us, because we do receive the biggest budget. He was firm with us on issues. But he also allowed us to have that sense of hope and optimism that our head of state is having, that understanding around educational matters. It mattered to him.
As we were coming to terms with this devastating news, the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture has embarked on a number of, I want to say, lifelines for all stakeholders within education to mourn the death, but certainly also to help them reflect on his life and his legacy and his major contribution to the education sector. One such platform was to allow schools to, in their own unique and authentic and organic way, say goodbye. Please talk to us about that.
Denver, what our schools did in 1 week's time, they owed it. We did not share any speech or any prepared remarks. All that we requested was that you have got the day or the week to prepare in your own manner, through the voices and the creativity and the innovation of the teachers and the parents, or the school board, the principals and the learners. We wanted the learners' voices to come out. We wanted them to sit and talk to each other and get the facts right around his history, his education and everything else, and then come up with their own authentic programs. And she said it so well. And I think there's not one Namibian that have not seen some sense of the ceremonies that were held, the fantastic tributes, the heartfelt and really warm and solemn, respectful, dignified manner in which our head of state has been remembered. There was a lot of emotions. You had children praying. Our resource schools did amazing, the special schools, in paying tribute to the children and the teachers. Children were praying, children were reciting poetry, children were getting into art. From ECD, early childhood, from pre-primary up to grade 12, we had the most beautiful documentation from schools on how they felt his impact in their lives, in the lives of the nation, and especially in the education sector. I think they went beyond education sector. I must say, at various times we were pleasantly surprised. And every single video and photo that was shared, we appreciated.
It makes sense, therefore, that the ministry has since adjusted the school calendar as Namibians enter the final days before we say goodbye to His Excellency Dr. Geingob. Talk to us about the announcement relating to the school calendar for Friday.
All right. So there are two issues here. First, we must remember that Sunday, so two main events are coming up. It's the National Memorial Service on the 24th, it's Saturday. But then there's also the big day when we all say our final goodbyes on Sunday, the 25th. So a public holiday has been declared for Sunday and automatically goes over onto the Monday. Initially, our out weekend was supposed to be the next week. When it was end of the month, then you had the first and the second as the out weekends. We then consulted our regional directors and we said, shouldn't we then now make this, seeing that Monday is also a public holiday, shouldn't we make this an out weekend? And then we discussed further, Minister and I were in Addis Ababa at the Assembly, and we discussed further and we consulted with Secretary to Cabinet, who actually was saying you should be actually considering it, because except that we have program on the 24th and on the 25th, there will also be a military procession, a ceremonious lineup and procession through the streets of Windhoek, and we would love also the children to be involved. And we said, but that is actually excellent, because usually you would have an out weekend and now you have a longer weekend. So we then discussed and consulted further, and the minister, with the powers that is vested with her in the Education Act 3 of 2020, she has the right to deviate. And after our consultation, we then decided that it will just be the right thing to do. There are children in the city, but also elsewhere, who wish to travel with their parents, to the memorial service. And you can't exclude them. We talk here of a man who was so passionate about the house that must be inclusive. And it was on that basis that we agreed that, so Friday is a school holiday based on Education Act 3 of 2020, but Monday is a public holiday. And so we just put them all together so that we have this extension. And of course, we also expect the schools to compensate, obviously, for the times that they are not having school.
For those pupils who will be participating or observing the procession on Friday, will they do so with the guidance of their parents and caregivers, or will it be part of a school initiative to the extent to which the schools organize it amongst themselves?
So we are actually just from a national meeting right now. More information will be shared officially with the schools in Khomas. At this stage, we only talk about the schools in Khomas. We looked at 15 to 20 learners because it would be easier to transport them. But there are 7 legs where the procession starts, stop, and restart. So 7 legs. So we're thinking of clustering our schools, and it must be in school uniform, so that they will be accompanied by teachers. And that procession already starts off at 12 o'clock at State House. More information will be shared officially and in writing with the Khomas region, and we are thinking of clustering the schools. So the schools will look at the points nearest to them and then join the procession. Or the schools can also decide that they want to do the procession from the very start, starting at State House. So we give that a little bit of flexibility because it involves logistical arrangements, it involves transport, and it involves proper planning. But contrary to what we earlier thought, it will start around 12 at State House and it will end by 15:30 35 again.
In the event that a pupil may be overcome with emotions, which is not unlikely, how will we hold space for them?
Well, we are a grieving nation. We're a nation in mourning. All of us have been trying to come to terms, and you don't just get the time to come to terms to just have a quiet space. You know, it's quite overwhelming. We talked about it earlier for everybody. So they will be accompanied by a life skills teacher. We ask our life skills teacher have undergone basic counseling and bereavement counseling, and we're so hoping that they can have that experience of being with the learners and provide. All we need right now is love and care from each other. It's just that hug or a touch, you know, a person to know I'm in a safe space when I'm in your presence, and we can grieve together. So yeah, I think we should not be ashamed if we shed tears and if we are overcome with emotion. It's our head of state that we lost.
What do you believe we need to continue doing as we honor his legacy, particularly as a seasoned educator?
We do the basic things, Denver. We do the basic things that don't cost us money. Kindness, listening to each other, speaking truthfully about issues, being energetic and passionate about what you do. Try to do it right from the first start. Those are the basic things, the basic values, the virtues, I would think. You know, be accountable for what you do. Answer the nation, speak to the nation honestly and truthfully. But so all of us, what is it that we can recall? What did he mean to us? How can I live that? Is it to be honest and open about issues? Is it to be transparent and accountable? Is it to serve with integrity? It doesn't cost money, but it costs discipline. It costs maybe giving a little bit more of ourselves. So I would say everybody must find how they wish to remember him and find a way of creating, seeing that is this something that I can emulate? Or is it something that I can improve on? And I think we should have more discussions such as this where we remember him and where we share what we recall of him and how he made us feel, and try to share, just to relive that and commit to a certain virtue that he held true.
I'm sure you've been subjected to what our families and our loved ones say about teachers, that whether you're in the classroom, whether you're in traffic, whether you're on television, whether you are seemingly relaxed on a Saturday afternoon, once a teacher, always a teacher. Someone needs to take charge, someone needs to organize, someone needs to take control, and someone also needs to teach the lessons that need to be taught. What do you make of that perception, number one? Number two, did you see some of those traits present in his leadership approach to the presidency, and that are some of those qualities that we can certainly emulate as we continue to remember him?
His Excellency didn't shy away from addressing controversial issues. He sat with people around the table. He allowed for dialogue. Dialogue is something I held so dearly on to, because I believe if you can resolve the conflict, you get new respect for each other. If we can sit around the table, or we can face each other and say, I did not like the way you do this. I did not like the way you were speaking or that you were directing us. You should be. So in education, we say there's no holy cows. Everybody should be accessible, first and foremost, from the principal to the accounting officer to the minister. If there is space and time, create the space and time to listen to people. Have the dialogue, even if it's the uncomfortable decisions. Have performance dialogues. He instituted performance dialogue, you know, as part of his work as a prime minister. So why is it that we can't, in a safe and neutral space, discuss issues that are of critical importance for this nation, issues of performance reviews, where we say that, look, I failed. I need more support to reach the goals that I set, or to reach the targets that I've set for myself or for my learners, or that I set for me and my team in education. I need more support. So that's the kind of dialogue we want to see happening. You know, not bickering, not being egocentric, not antagonizing people. I think we should embrace difficult discussions and unpopular decisions. I said in the beginning of the year that in the positions in which we are, positions of power and authority, you must have a clear balance to assert your authority without abusing your power, without misusing your power. And you must be able to live with the genuine consequences of some of the decisions that we make. Because our decisions, Denver, and we've seen it now, it's a very topical issue around procurement. Our decisions are not carrying, it's having genuine consequences. Can you live with that? Do you need to correct? So there's, in my view, I think as head of state, he did regular reflections. I think as a head of state, he consulted, he respected to listen to others, and that is what we should try to emulate in our workplaces with each other.
If we believe that the young ones model our behavior in any case, do you believe part of the challenge could be the creating of the safe space? It's one thing to say that we must have these difficult and uncomfortable and awkward conversations, provided the space is safe and neutral. Could the challenge be to establish the safe, neutral space?
Where do we start? Again, we go back to the basics. So you will not have, as a principal, you will not have a performance dialogue with the teacher in your office. You create a space because your authority is already asserting itself by engaging this teacher. You break down the barriers. You sit on chairs that are similar like ours. There's no chairs. You are not having a higher chair that shows better authority over me right now. You've pulled this table away. There's no barrier between us. This Denver, what we have here, this example in the studio right now, it's a safe and neutral space.
A physical example.
That's a physical example of a safe space. I feel safe
We're
being
very happy
here.
to hear that. Yeah,
I
that is
feel
important.
safe being here. There's no barriers between us. We're sitting on the same height of chairs. We're making eye contact. We have respect, and we are engaging in a respectful manner. We may not agree on everything. So that's what needs to happen at a school level, or in the Department of Planning, or a senior education officer with education officers to say, this is what statistics show us. Clearly, there's something wrong. We need to do things differently. What are your views? What do you think you need? What are your expectations? Except for the resources, how else can we be of support to the schools? The principal should be able to say, in mathematics, the children, same grade 8B, did excellent. In history, they failed dismally. What is wrong? How should we do this?
Let's say I'm the history teacher.
Yeah.
And I'm committed as a teacher to my profession, yet my domestic setup is problematic. I may be addicted to alcohol or any other substance. Do we have safe spaces for teachers where they can go to in the event that they have problems of that nature that impact the quality of their teaching?
So who's your first entry point? Your principal is your gatekeeper. Your HOD is your immediate supervisor. So they must be, at the school level, you must be able to form a rapport, to form relationships, respectful relationship with each other. That's why we cannot tolerate division in our schools. It's unacceptable. So you need to be able to be free to say, look, I have a problem. I don't want to talk about to anybody at the school level, but I want to talk to a priest or a pastor or a good friend, or I want to speak to the life skills. So you still have the choice to do that. And the public service staff rules, very clear. We are so fortunate, Denver, that we've got medical aid. We have access to psychologists where possible, maybe not in the deep rural areas, but I'm sure, arrangements can be made. So I think it's a matter of not suffering in silence. It's a syndrome that we have. We are too proud to say, I am unwell. I am not in my best. I'm not the best that I can be today as an executive director, but I believe when I go home and I come back well rested tomorrow morning, I will, try to steer the ship again. So it's a matter of acknowledgement of issues that are not well with us, and I think that is a mindset. So we are cognizant that we all come from different households,
and even two people from the same household are different people.
Exactly. Some of us are more extroverted. We can talk about issues. Others prefer to deal with it in silence, and that builds up. So everybody will need to have a way of finding what works for them. Who can I trust that I can open up to? And then sit, because that is where you sit with your head of department or your principal and say, look, I'm moving from setting my target, I'm shifting it to 80 and not 100% because of the following reasons. I need your support here. I need you to be a little bit more understanding. A staff member told me the other day, I'm going through very difficult things, Edie. Please bear with me. And I said, that's beautiful that you say it. So I'm more aware, if anything, that I should check in with her or with him, that they are well. Is there anything else that we can do to make things a little bit lighter for you? And just to support. I think that's also that organizational culture of care. We should bring it back into our workplaces, into our schools. Schools, workplaces should be safe spaces and not toxic places.
In the spirit of the safe space that we're finding ourselves in, according to your acknowledgement, I'd like to return to the matter of this coming weekend, a slightly controversial matter that we've picked up. Private schools want to know whether this arrangement for the coming weekend, that is Friday and of course Monday, applies to them too.
If you want one word answer, I would say absolutely. Absolutely. No two ways about it. So, our Education Act, we are one of the countries that consulted in a very in-depth manner, but also very broadly on our Education Act. And private schools were part of it, unions were part of it, various stakeholders. So Education Act 3 of 22, it is a regulation that every single school, 251 private schools, because your numbers keep on changing because some of them close, they're small.
New ones open.
Others open up. But our statistics now show that we've got 251 private schools. Only 2 came back to, that we saw. All the others were in compliance. So you, as a public, we serve both private and public schools.
And the Act serves both.
And the Act, most importantly, serves both. Just like we are all under the supreme law, the constitution of this country. So yes, absolutely, everybody needs to comply. If there were particular plans for the Friday, just like public schools had to make peace, that we need to shift those plans, or we need to compensate for the teaching. All of us want better academic results, whether we start from pre-grade up to grade 12. But we must remember that as a collective, we are in a national mourning period.
It reminds me, at some other platform, concern was also raised about extracurricular activities, for which the calendar is also set at the start of the year generally. And if, for instance, a swimming gala had been planned for this coming weekend, the calendar was set at the start of the year, and they want to do so in honor of the late Dr. Hage Geingob, would it be their prerogative to do so if they so wish, or would it be the ministry's recommendation that they perhaps also try and adjust their calendar accordingly out of respect?
So it was quite an interesting discussion that we had back at the ministry as well. And we said, well, he was a sportsman. He would not have wanted everything to, all the expenses, that were, and all the planning, the excitement of the learners, the pupils, the excitement of teams getting together to do in-house athletics. So as I was walking from the Prime Minister's office to the car to come here, I heard the cheering of the schools, because they were busy with athletics. Yeah, so we said we're not going to deter them from doing that. We're going to give them the flexibility to continue, because we think that's one way of honoring His Excellency.
Provided it doesn't happen on Friday.
Yeah, of course. So for now, we are saying as a nation in mourning, we had all these other dates, 3 weeks, to still do that. So can we now come to an understanding that we are part of the national mourners, and that we want to do and do justice to what we also feel and experience as learners, as teachers, as educators.
So is the recommendation that for Friday, Saturday and Sunday, these sporting activities best be postponed?
Denver, we did not get, I can't say yes or no, because we did not get any
formal request
to say, may we please proceed. So we have informed the directors, please, you have oversight in the regions about this. And then, of course, many would have loved to be in Windhoek, and they cannot be. So I think one have to be a little bit more understanding for the
Yes.
different contexts in which our schools operate.
The NBC will take care of every Namibian who won't be able to make it to Windhoek this coming weekend.
That's a beautiful commitment, and we're very grateful. In fact,
It's ours, after all.
It's ours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were saying?
I was actually, as I was entering and we were having discussions with the colleagues of the NBC, I said, we should have a special tribute, of a special expression of gratitude for the media. Because without you, I think you've made it so much easier for us to mourn as a collective, because you allowed us to have access, good quality access to all the memorial services, and you brought the voices of different people to our sitting rooms and our kitchens, and and I just want to really appreciate the media for doing what you do, and doing it so seamlessly while you are also mourning.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that. Another matter that we figured was completely unnecessary, but we can't control these things, related to an announcement last weekend about an outbreak of COVID-19 at schools in the Hardap region, specifically Rehoboth. What do you make of that development? Amidst it all, that also needs to be dealt with.
I must say there was behind the scenes so much scurrying around, discussions with the regional director, please meet with them. So immediately you were back again in warrior mode. What are the standing operating procedures? What did experience teach us with COVID? How did we handle it? What does the facts tell us? What is the factual information? Let us first get the information right. So
and we have come a long way.
And we've come a long way. Denver, how we sat in the very studio, talking about issues, not even knowing. I remember once touching my mask and somebody texted afterwards and said, you never touch your mask. So immediately you went back into what does previous experience teach us? What should we do? How should we do it? But now we are also... and so we said we will not make an announcement as the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture without having the facts and working with Ministry of Health. And I think that acknowledgement of close collaboration between the line ministries, that's very important. Secondly, we don't want anybody to panic. We don't want anybody to panic. The standard operating procedures that were in place at that time has not been withdrawn. So we can all go back and refresh our memory as to what we need to do when something happens. And we will always be guided by the medical teams. But yeah, I must admit, it was taking us aback. I was looking at the report of COVID that has been released for the period up to from the 11th up to now. And Hardap in Rehoboth. And you were wondering, where does it come from? So you also had your own questions, but you need to go into action immediately.
Absolutely, and stakeholders such as the Rehoboth Town Council, I saw they've been very proactive to remind residents about the protocols, to remind residents about where they could go to get tested, and what the best practice would be under such circumstances. And I think what we are reminded of again during this time of mourning is that together is better, number one, and that collaboration is key, and that you're not alone on this journey, you're not alone in mourning, and that we are and should be there for one another. What will you miss most about Dr. Hage Geingob, Ms. Steenkamp?
On a different level, his laughter and his moves, but also the fact that when he spoke to you, it wasn't just all laughter and light moments. There was also a deep sense of firmness. He was a true leader. I'll miss his leadership that he gave us, and his belief in the public service. He was a public servant of note.
Until his last breath.
Until his last breath. And I think that's that pride must be instilled in all of us, that I must serve with integrity in the public service. It's my choice to be in the public service, and I'm a proud public servant. And I'll miss that of my president. Any
final thoughts before we let you go?
Let's share the laugh, let's share the mourning. We are in this together. Like we said, we are a collective. Never before have we seen Namibians uniting in the manner that we do now. It shouldn't change after Sunday, the 25th.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing expertise. In the spirit of giving people the flowers while they can smell them, thank you for your continued service to this nation.
Thank you, Denver. I can say the same about you.
Thank you very much. That was Madam Sanet Steenkamp, Executive Director in the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture, talking to us about the legacy of the late Dr. Hage Geingob as an educator, also talking to us about the arrangements regarding the school calendar for this coming weekend and helping us remember our late statesman. We will be